The primary example of that is Ashura and the Karbala. How many of us can endure the plains of Karbala? Most of us can't. So that's going towards bala, going towards tribulation. That's not fearing death. That's being impatient for death.
There's this beautiful story of Rumi where somebody is afraid of dying. So he explains that when the baby is in the womb, he's nice and he's comfortable and he's in the dark. And then somebody tells him, listen, when you come out, you're going to see beautiful skies and trees and a beautiful world and the smile of your mother and really beautiful things await you. And he says that the same thing should be said to the people who are dying. So it's kind of the same process. You're going from one world to another.
Sunni tradition, we would generally connect Ashura with Musa alayhi salam and the freeing of the children of Israel from Fir'aun. So also that has another very useful reading in that, again, it's about freedom from oppression. It's about being released from the oppression of yourself.
Ultimately, that death is not death. That death is life, eternal life. Maulana says in the Mathal, it's just like a bird that's freed from a cage. That cage breaks. Yes, the body breaks, but the bird flies. Maulana's vision is ahistorical. Fir'aun is gone, Yazid is gone. What remains is the Fir'aun within us. What remains is the Yazid within us. And the Hussein within us, and the Musa within us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Ghazal 2102. چیست با عشق آشنا بودن. What does it mean to be familiar with love? What does love mean? Zahra, would you mind reading the Ghazal in Parsa?
چیست با عشق آشنا بودن، به جز از کام دل جدا بودند. خون شدن، خون خود فرو خوردن، با سگان بر در وفا بودند. او فداییست، هیچ فرقی نیست، پیش او مرگ و نقل یا بودن. رو مسلمان سپر سلامت باش، جهد میکن به پارسا بودن. این شهیدان ز مرگ نشکیبند، عاشقانند بر فنا بودند. از بلا و قضا گریزی تو، ترس ایشان ز بی بلا بودن. چشه میگیر روز عاشورا، تو نتانی به کربلا بودن.
That's my translation, so inshallah. And thank you, Kenza, for editing. Brother Abdurrahman, would you mind reading the translation, if you don't mind?
Bismillah. What does it mean to be familiar with love, except apart from all but the heart's true delight? To become blood, to drink one's own blood, to watch as faithful dogs at the gate of loyalty. The lover, a willing sacrifice, finds no difference between dying, departing, and life everlasting. Go, O Muslim, become a shield against comfort, and strive in earnest on the pious path. Be as the martyrs impatient for death, yearning, like lovers, for the embrace of annihilation. You flee from tribulation, dreading the divine decree. Their only fear is to live without trials. Observe the fast of 6 days and Ashura, for you are not one to endure the pain of Karbala.
So it's quite related to what Maulana was saying in the Masnavi. So love and being ready to let go of your existence, your I and we. Peace ba ishq ashna budan. What does it mean to be in love? It's to part from all of those. Part from your I and we and desires. Yes, Madam.
Allah It's very I say strange. It's not really strange when you think about it. But at our sohbet yesterday, we talked. There was a sohbet given about devotion, duty, submission, and how they and their relationship with love. And we were asked to reflect on what these things might mean. And it's not even 24 hours before Mevlana comes back and says, "Here's the answer." Allah, Allah.
Allah.
And especially, we were asked to reflect on Ashura and to reflect on what that means and to think deeply about that.
Indeed.
Allah.
So yeah, Maulana asks, what does it mean to be آشنای عشق, to be familiar with love? If you're familiar with love, you become a stranger to yourself. You become a stranger to everything else. بجز از کام دل جدا بودن. You're ready to part, you're ready to be separated from everything else, everything other than your beloved. All you care about is your beloved. So to be with your beloved, you're ready to part with everything else. Whether it's your possessions, whether it's your family, whether it's your, there are things that people love themselves, their bodies, their reputation, the lover is ready to let go of all of those for the beloved. For the kama dil, that's the heart's true delight. Everything else can go. Everything else is sacrificed. Just like the fox in the Mastavi, right? At first he wanted the hunts, but then he was transformed. All he wanted was the king. So he didn't want the rabbit anymore. He didn't want the goat anymore. All of them for you. I want you. And yeah, that's what the lover does. The lover is ready to let go. خون شدن خون خود فروخوردن. And they drink their own blood. And not only that, they become blood. Their sacrifice, their whole being becomes sacrifice. It's not just a partial sacrifice. It's not, no, their whole being is committed to the beloved. با سگان بر در وفا بودن. And just like dogs, so dogs in Persian literature, sometimes they're used for being greedy or being aggressive and things like that, But here they're also the symbol of love and loyalty, just like in Ashab al-Kahf, the dog is the symbol of loyalty. Yeah, Maulana is saying the lover is just like that loyal dog that stands and guards and keeps watch, right? Doesn't sleep for the beloved. So با سگان بر در وفا بودن, to watch as faithful dogs at the gate of loyalty. او فداییست, هیچ فرقی نیست. And the lover is فدایی. The lover is willingly sacrificing himself because he realizes that true life is in death. And that death, or what people think it's death, it's actually a gateway. It's actually a gateway to eternal life. So what people think is life, is living, is just this daily people think that's life. No, that's death. That's the death of the soul. No, it's better to keep your soul alive. Keep your soul alive and let the body die, rather than your body being living and the soul is dead. It's just like the body needs the soul to be alive. The soul needs Allah. The soul needs that connection to the beloved. And once you're lost in the world and you forget the beloved, then your soul dies gradually. But the lover, no. The lover sees life in death, sees everlasting life in that surrender and that sacrifice. Yes, Ahmed.
I just had a question, debate above about the blood. I didn't really understand it. To become blood, yeah.
So the way I understand it is to become blood is to be ready to be sacrificed, right? So just blood is death, right? So their whole being becomes a sacrifice for the beloved, becomes blood.
Yeah. Is it related to Ashura, or I don't know? I was just thinking if the blood shedding.
Could be, yeah. That's could be. That's in a sense the theme of the poem is sacrifice. Is yes, but that.
Just the thought that maybe if you can't drink water, ordinary water, you drink your own life, you drink your own blood, and you give up that willingly, perhaps.
Yeah, indeed. So the next couplet, Maulana says, رو مسلمان سپر سلامت باش. Be a shield against comfort. So the enemy of love is comfort, right? The enemy of love is just seeking what's easy and what's convenient and not going outside that comfort zone. That's the enemy, because you're not ready to take risks. So you need a shield against that. You need to protect yourself against seeking comfort, seeking always the easy path, because the path of love is not necessarily the easy path. So go and try, go and strive to walk on the path of piety, on the path that's the battlefield against the nafs. It's not convenient, it's not comfortable, but you need that. So become a shield against comfort. Yes, Badaba.
So it makes me think of two things. First of all, the hadith of the Jihad al-Akbar. It's almost like that outer stuff, the fighting and all of that. That's just just circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
That's just accident, if you like. And here is the essence, the inner work. So that's important. And then also, I think it's a little late, so I'm perhaps mixing up several ayat, if at all. But those who strive in our way, we should grant love from us, or something like that. An ayah from the Quran. If that's in any sense correct, then that may be what Mevlana is pointing towards here, because it's a direct reference. We're being pointed towards love. You have to prove it. But again, I might be.
No, that's الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, right? The people who strive in our path. And then, yes, Maulana says, look at the martyrs. In شهیدان ز مرگ نشکیبند. So most people seek a comfortable life, right? Most people are not ready for shahada. But the martyrs know they're impatient for death. So if you take it to the Jihad al-Akbar, the battle against the ego, they're impatient for the death of their ego. عاشقانند بر فنا بودن, and they yearn for that fana, for that embrace of the annihilation. Because they're in love, they run towards that. They run towards death. And it's one of the signs of a lover, is the lover is not afraid of death. Yes, Ali.
Yeah, I just thought that that there was this poem that I sent in the group another day. A few couplets was also about love. I don't know if we have the time, so I'd like to read it. Yeah.
Please, yes.
Yeah. So that's it goes like, از آن جامی که دادی کربلا را، بنوشان این خراب مبتلا را. چنان مستم کن از یکتا پرستی، که از آهم بسوزد کل هستی. And this also reminds me of this saying from Imam Ali, right, where he says that love is Hubbullah, love of God is like fire, right? When it grips the soul, it burns and annihilates the ego and brings forth the ruh and the beauty of the soul.
Absolutely. Can you read the poem again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. از آن جامی که دادی کربلا را، بنوشان این خراب مبتلا را. چنان مستم کن از یکتا پرستی، که از آهم بسوزد کل هستی.
That's beautiful indeed. Yes. So from the cup that you gave to those in Karbala, give me as well. Give me as well, and make me drunk with Tawheed, with Yekta Parasti, so that my will burn the whole existence. Yeah, indeed, that's beautiful.
I really liked this poem from Marhum Razai Aghasi. I think in the last week I have at least heard it 30 times or 40 times. It's just beautiful, really beautiful.
Yes, Ahaj.
Yeah, I was just thinking where, sorry, it says that martyrs are thirsty for death. But in the Quran it says that the martyrs are actually alive. They're not dead.
Yes, so and they're thirsty for what appears to be death, but that's actually life. So, fana, but it's also baqa. It's baqa billah. It's the death of the ego, but it's actually everlasting life. Earlier on, Maulana says, for them, there is no difference between what you think is death and life and everlasting life, because they've already annihilated their ego. They've already dead to the ego. They're alive with Allah. Yes, but
it's in translation, but one of my favorite Quranic tafsir is Maybudi's Kashf al-Asrar, in which he
Beautiful.
talks
Indeed.
about the ayah, don't say those who killed in the way of Allah are dead,
Mhm.
and to the end of the ayah. And then he talks about how beautiful it is, you know,
Mhm.
and for those who die, you know, are martyred in that way.
Mhm.
And this is for those who, you know, who die by the enemy. Imagine those who die by the friend.
Allah,
And you
Allah.
just think, if you think, aha.
Yeah, there's also, Qudsi hadith that those who love me, I will love them. And those that I love, I will kill them. Right? And those that I will kill them, I am the blood money. That death is just a gateway to eternal life. Yes, brother.
I think in a way it does connect very well with the imagery of mirrors that we were looking at.
Mhm.
Because if your mirror is dirty
Mhm.
and it's rusty, you look at this and you think, look at those Muslims, they just want to blow stuff up, and it's a death cult, and it's all taqiyya when they say it's all love, you know what I mean? But you
Mhm.
have to have a bit of depth. And I
Mhm.
feel like the way that most Muslims understand, astaghfirullah, as if that level of understanding that hadith, that
Mhm.
mu'min and muratul mu'min, is
Mhm.
counseling each other to goodness, and you know, like
Mhm. Yep.
then you start there, and then you go deeper, and then you go deeper, and then you go deeper, and then
Mhm.
you realize that you take the blindfold off, and you can see that the world is much bigger and much
Mhm.
vaster and much more beautiful and more sacred. So
Mhm.
then you understand that you didn't see things properly, and it's
Mhm.
only once you are able to see things more clearly that you can understand what um, sacrifice and
Mhm.
martyrdom
Mhm.
might like.
Mhm.
And then also it goes all the way back to, you know, Bala Shahidna, right?
Mhm.
So it's like return to the beginning, and it's like circles. And
Mhm.
anyway, I
Indeed.
find it bewildering after that point.
Indeed. In Shahidna, we witnessed. Yeah, indeed. And, Shahada is going back to that witnessing. The martyr is the one who witnesses. It comes from Shahada, to see, to witness. Yeah. And then Maulana sets a contrast, right? There's the contrast, that's most of us, right? And people who seek comfort, we flee from tribulation. We don't like tribulation. We don't like trials. We want to live a comfortable life, easy life. As bala wa qaza gurizi to. We're not happy when something bitter happens to us. But those people, the martyrs, what they're afraid of is living without trials. Because living without trials leads to heedlessness, leads to forgetting. That's why in the traditions they say that Pharaoh, he didn't have a headache for so many years, not even a headache, not even a toothache. If he had a toothache or a headache, he wouldn't think he's God. But because he didn't face any poverty, he didn't face any sickness, he didn't face any trial, that pride appeared in him. So this is what the lovers are afraid of. They're afraid of pride. They're not afraid of trials. They're afraid of, Maulana was saying in the Masnavi, they're not afraid of the blows that hit the body. They're afraid of the blows that hit the heart. So their only fear is to live without trials. Oh, yes, Alish.
Yeah, I just thought that this is also a beautiful masterclass in dealing with the tribulations and struggles in life, right? Because nowadays we are taught by movies, and also unfortunately by Western scholars, that a good life is a sum of happiness, right? So the more happiness you have, the better life that you have. So you have to seek to maximize your happiness, and that's the only goal in life. But here Maulana is giving a completely different lesson, right? That you should welcome the happiness, and you should welcome the struggles and the difficulties, because all of them are from Allah. And if you only seek the happiness, then you will never find happiness. Yeah? You'll always be in a circle.
Absolutely.
And then that's also why I think that, I mean, if we look at a lot of Western countries with such high living standards, the people are just, a lot of people are just in misery, right? Psychologically, especially. I mean, in Denmark, I think I've said this before, that like 1 in 5 people are chronically depressed, despite Denmark being one of the quote unquote happiest countries in the world. But the reality is that everybody seeks to maximize their happiness, and they don't think of trials and tribulations in life as an opportunity for growth and seeking nearness to the divine. And as the divine disappears, so does the sense of fulfillment and eternal happiness, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people are unhappy because they expect perfect life in this world, and that's an impossibility. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Brother Abner.
I think it's another example where Mevlana stands something on its head, the notion of trial. When we ordinarily think about it, we think about all the difficulties of life and all sorts of tribulations. But really, the real tribulation is to live without any kind of purificatory difficulty. Anything that makes you think about your own actions, your own behavior, and how they impact, to not look beyond, so that you look beyond your own selfishness. If you're never given those kinds of shocks, I don't know, tribulations, trials, it's only ever going to reinforce your view of yourself as perfectly right, perfectly just in doing all sorts of selfish things. For myself, the archetype would be like a Roman emperor, like one of the bad ones, Caligula, for example, or Nero, from a very early age, who's going to say no to even like the toddler Nero? When would he ever have had his ego challenged? Who's going to say no? You can't eat that 15th biscuit. No, you can't have this. You can't have that. So that's an example of somebody who lives without trial.
Indeed.
And also, I suppose if we think, generally I see it when I look back some distance over the course of my life. We remember a few years ago when this happened, and you can see from that vantage point, oh yeah, but that thing happened, and that allowed me to see this thing differently, and so on and so forth. And so you can see the hand, you can see a hand in it, developing one, and you can feel that there is a wisdom behind it, even if you don't necessarily believe straightforwardly in God, so to speak. But you can see that there is a sort of a mysterious wisdom behind lots of the things that happen. And that being so, that can help you. It can be a gateway to connection with others, because you're all in the same boat, because there is a hand at work somehow, however mysteriously. But if you never live with it, if you have every whim satisfied, you're the king of the world, or so you think. And the king that rules alone. Everybody else is your servant. That's what the nafs is most fully. So, in essence, in here in Britain, it's just as bad as Ali Jan describes Denmark. Atomization and disconnection. We need trials. Maybe this is what the trials of the current world are about. Allahu Alam.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of a passage in the Masnavi. Maulana says, "Don ke har dardi ze murdan pare ist." Know that every pain is a portion of death. It's a little death. Every toothache, every headache, it's a lesson for death. It's a preparing yourself for death. And if you can't escape those little pains, if you can't escape those little sufferings, you can't escape death. And then those who, as Maulana says here, their only fear is live without trials. Those emperors, those Pharaoh or Nero, those people who lived without pain, they didn't experience those things. And then when death comes to them, it's a really bitter moment because they have to let go of everything suddenly. But those who experience trials throughout their life, they've already prepared themselves. When death comes, they're more likely to welcome death. And yeah, that's, the Quran says, those who forget us, we will open all doors for them. So they will have a really comfortable life in this world. And then we will seize them. So that's what Maulana is talking about here, when people become heedless. And that's the danger. That's what people should be afraid of. Zahaj.
Yeah, it just was very similar to what everyone else shared about not being able to grow from my comfort zone. Really, you do need the difficulties, like a seed which is in the soil in darkness. It needs to be in that darkness, and then it starts growing, and then there's light, and then it will grow further. Yeah.
Indeed. Allah. Yes, Badabba.
As Zahra was talking about the seed, I was thinking about a baby in the womb as it draws near to birth. I wonder if they think, oh my God, it's getting so difficult these days. Oh, this world that I live in, it's so bad, so much pressure. Oh, I'm gonna die, But then to be born into some larger world, at least that's my earnest prayer that it worked that way for us.
Indeed, Allah. Yes, Kanzaj.
Yeah, there's this beautiful story of Rumi where somebody is afraid of dying, and so he explains that when the baby is in the womb, he's nice and he's comfortable and he's in the dark. And then somebody tells him, listen, when you come out, you're going to see beautiful skies and beautiful trees and a beautiful world and the smile of your mother and, these things, like really beautiful things await you. And he says that the same thing should be said to the people who are dying. So it's kind of the same process. You're going from one world to another, and both are towards beautiful things.
Allah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Just that made me think of the very interesting work of a I forget, a neurologist, neuroscientist, and also at the same time a psychiatrist. I might be getting those terms a bit muddled up, but essentially his work straddles the it's involved with consciousness and to do with the brain side of it and the affective side of it, how the person experiences it. A lot of his work is about the end of life stuff, and lots of really fascinating stories about what people see and experience of that. I'll post it in the group.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, Maulana, the next verse, he says the supreme example of that, the primary example of that is Ashura and the Karbala. How many of us can endure the plains of Karbala? Most of us can't. So that's going towards bala, going towards tribulation. That's not fearing death. That's being impatient for death. We see that in Karbala. We see that in how they welcomed the arrows and the swords, because they knew that it's better for the body to receive blows than for the soul. The impurity in the soul, that's more dangerous than for the heads to be cut, or because ultimately that death is not death. That death is life, eternal life. Maulana says in the method, it's just like a bird that's freed from a cage. That cage breaks. Yes, the body breaks, but the bird flies. Just like a jar that breaks and the musk fills the air. So, Maulana says, if you can't endure the plain of Karbala, at least fast. That fasting is a battle, is against the ego, against the yazid of your own nafs. So at least, that's the least you can do, is to start with little, to start with saying no to your nafs, to start with saying no to your desires. So If you not want to endure Karbala, start with fasting. Start with saying no to your nafs.
I just thought of two things. I was reminded of on the subject of pain and suffering. I was reminded of this beautiful saying from Dostoevsky, where he says that when you feel pain, when you feel your own pain, you're alive. You feel alive, and then if you feel the pain of others, then you are a human being. So it is sad for those who do not experience the pain of others because they do not experience humanity. And then I thought of something I think more maybe practical. And when Maulana says that you should at least try to fast on the day of Ashura, and as we all know, in some Shia circles, it's it's highly discouraged to fast on the day of Ashura, based on the fact that the mother of Yazid fasted on that day, Ashura, and therefore you should not fast on that day because it has negative implications. But I really like this interpretation and understanding that you do not fast to in essence to fast for the sake of victory of Yazid, but you fast because you want to break the Yazids of your own nafs, right?
Nafs,
And
indeed.
and it's also, I feel like it's overlooked that even in classical Shia theology, it's not discouraged to fast on the day of Ashura. It's more of like a traditional thing, I think. But that's unfortunately really splitting people apart, right? Splitting different groups because some are fasting and some are not, and they have one interpretation that they're really they really emphasize on, and they can't see the other perspective. I think that's really unfortunate.
Indeed. As the Prophet says, al-a'mal bin-niyat, right? The actions are by intentions. So it depends on your intention. It's like building a mosque. If you build a mosque but your intention is to ostentation, that's discouraged. That's actually shirk. But if you do it for Allah, that's a praiseworthy thing. And same with fasting. If you do it with the intention that that's what I can do. I can't be in Karbala. What I can do is break my own ego. That's what I can do. That's a pure intention, right? That's a beautiful intention, and that's a beautiful act. But it depends on the intention, like most actions. Yes, Lahaj.
Yeah, it reminded me of the poem you wrote last year about Karbala and Muharram.
Yes.
And quite rightly that we just think about it one day or 1 month of the year, whereas we have to be reflecting and fighting our nafs throughout the whole year, and we kind of forget that for the rest of it.
Indeed. Allah. It's like every day is for those who are lovers, every day is Ashura, so it's not just 1 month or one day. Yes, what other?
Train of thought before it's even left the station. Allah. So one thing that comes to mind immediately is this is another example where the current craze, if you like, for Mevlana misreads Mevlana, as the sort of the poet of formless, soppy love. Because Mevlana here tells you to do a religious thing. Observe the fast of 6 days of Shawwal and Ashura. If you want to grow, do these things. We seek within the form, but the forms that we've been given themselves are beautiful and valid and have meaning and purpose, and you can't get there without them. So that's a little thing that comes from that. The other thing, now the train is getting going, is that certainly in the Sunni tradition we would generally connect Ashura with Musa alayhi salam and the freeing of the children of Israel from Fir'aun. So also that has another very useful reading, in that, again, it's about freedom from oppression. It's about being released from the oppression of yourself, if you like, from that. So there's a lot here. It's very rich.
Indeed. Well, so yeah, in both cases, it's against oppression. And, Maulana's vision is ahistorical. Pharaoh is gone, Yazid is gone. What remains is the Pharaoh within us. What remains is the Yazid within us, and the Hussein within us, and the Musa within us. That's what we're left with. It's not about history. It's not about something in the past. It's about what we can do here and now. Yes, brother.
There's it may be the Mesnavi, and maybe a ghazal in which Mevlana talks about the shimmer of our own selves. I forget where it's from, but that's also very instructive.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, Maulana says everything I'm talking about, it's inside you. The Shimr, the Yazid, the Pharaoh, the Musa, they're all inside you. Yes, Danish.
Yeah, and I think it's quite good to be mindful that we shouldn't get into this separation of Shia, Sunni. We all one at the end of the day, and that's why Maulana's like mentioning it. Karbala, Ashura. Because at the end of the day, we feel compassion for everyone, and we all one.
Absolutely, yeah, indeed, Allah. And yeah, it's one of the things that all Muslims are united on. They might have disagreements on how to observe it, right? Do you practice this or not? Do you fast or do you not? But it's one of the things that all Muslims agree on, the spirit of, right, fighting against the Yazid of your own nafs. No one will disagree. No one will say, right? That's the core. That's the asl of asl, the root of what this day is about. Absolutely.